Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the Answer Company. The Division Championship Minnesota Twins are looking to go all the way to the World Series in 2024. Bolstered by inspirational shortstop Carlos Correa, a healthy Brian Buxton, and rookie phenom Royce Lewis, plus a pitching staff led by Pablo Lopez and an outstanding bullpen featuring Johan Duran, the Twins are the best bargain in the major leagues, and Target Field is the best venue in baseball. Sheridan Dulas & Kins, PA, a family and criminal defense law firm, has been serving clients in Dakota County and throughout Minnesota for over 40 years. Ranked a Tier 1 Best Law Firm by U.S. News and World Report every year since 2009, Sheridan Dulas & Kins are here to help you in your most difficult life circumstances. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Access to Democracy. I'm your host today, Steve Francisco. It's a pleasure to welcome to our studio today one of our sponsors and the founder and owner of the 45th Parallel Distillery, which is in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and also Stillwater, Minnesota. Paul Werni, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And again, thank you for being one of our sponsors. So, is it true that you started out in a landscaping business before you became a distiller?
Yeah, out of college. My college roommate was a landscape architect and we started a business together.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn from working in the landscaping business?
It was more of a construction side of landscaping. Oh. So I learned that to own your own business can be a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. But it can be rewarding too.
And a lot of challenges you would find.
Dealing with customers.
Dealing with employees sometimes. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too many employees back then.
Yeah. So what led you to start 45th Parallel Distillery?
I had an interest in doing something creative like that, but on a manufacturing level. So landscaping was creative, but it was fairly physical and outdoors. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do something more, like I said, on a manufacturing level like that.
Mm-hmm. And when you got into distilling, what was your first product that you produced?
Vodka, because vodka, you can sell it right away. Mm-hmm. And vodka was king at the time. Everybody was drinking vodka. It was very popular. It outsold everything else combined.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall what was your investment in this business to get it off the ground? I know you've grown a lot since you started it. What was the investment, and did you have partners who helped you get the business going?
No, it was just me. Mm-hmm. I would say it was about $700,000 in that initial investment, because we had to build a building, we had to buy equipment, and it just to get buying the materials, the bottles and stuff like that. So it was all fairly expensive.
And I would imagine that equipment that you use in the distilling process can be quite expensive.
It was. Everything was custom made in Germany because you couldn't buy equipment in the United States at the time. There were no distilleries or small distilleries at that time. So it's not like you could go somewhere and buy something used. So everything was custom made and new.
And you had to pay for the cost, obviously. Shipping it over from Germany to the U.S., that had to be expensive too.
Yes, you're talking a shipping container coming overseas, maybe $15,000 per container.
Wow. So you broke ground on the 45th parallel in New Richmond, Wisconsin, just across St. Croix River, not too far from the Twin Cities, 2006, and you opened in 2007, is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we got our federal permits and our state permits in the spring of 2007, and that way we were able to start distilling, and by fall we had products on the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Your website indicates, and I know this from familiarity with what you do, you're dedicated to traditional, slow, small batch production of beer and spirits. Explain to our viewers a little bit more what that means. What does that mean in terms of the production process more precisely?
Well, industrial production will probably, you're talking maybe speeding up fermentations. They can get fermentations done in a couple of days. They're running them a little bit hotter. And then they're going through industrial columns with their continuous columns. So it goes in and it comes out as a finished product almost. Where we are looking for slower, cooler fermentations that will last up to 5 days. And we are batch distilled. So we fill up a pot, you distill maybe, for example, vodka would take 3 distillations for us. So we fill it up, we charge it, we distill it, and then we do it again and again. So it takes us a lot longer.
So the big beer makers, let's say just take a name Anheuser-Busch or any of the big beer producers, you mentioned they speed up the fermentation processes. That has to do with the type of yeast that's
beer is a little
involved,
bit
or hops?
different. We are a distillery, so we're making distilled spirits. So the process is similar. We technically make a beer and then we distill it, but it's different. The beer that we would make, you wouldn't be drinking. I can't speak for Anheuser-Busch or Miller Coors. I can speak for maybe Brown Forman or Buffalo Trace. Yeah, they're going to go a little bit faster.
Okay.
A lot of alcohol is made in these ethanol facilities that you don't really know of. Archer Daniels Midland, out of they'll have a massive distillery that probably makes 20% of the spirits in this country.
So you started with vodka, then went to gin, and then aged spirits.
Yes, we started making aged spirits in 2009, and that's probably 90% of our production now.
So tell us about that, Paul, if you would. Give us some examples of these different products that you make, aged spirits.
Started with bourbon. We were actually hired by another company to make bourbon for them. And then we started making it for ourselves. Then we went to rye whiskey. And then we started making whiskey out of wheat. And then even other spirits that you can do some aging, like aquavits. Aquavit is similar to making a gin, but a lot of aquavit is then stuck in a barrel for a period of time.
And you were mentioning to me before we started recording today that aquavit has actually proven to be quite popular, right? With your clients and with some of your commercial customers, perhaps?
Well, the industry has grown quite a bit. There's a lot of distilling going on right now. And so there's a lot of bourbon being made at many different facilities, or vodkas or gins. But not too many facilities are making aquavit. And we were hired to make a dill aquavit for a company, and that's fairly rare. But it's becoming one of our best sellers, especially in Minnesota. And that's because it's popular with the bartenders and the kitchens.
What would you say is distinctive or unique about the type of aquavit that you're producing, perhaps compared to some of the other products on the market?
It's dill forward. So to make an aquavit, you need caraway. So if you don't have caraway in the product, you do not have an aquavit. However, certain parts of the world do not like the real heavy caraway coming forward. So they'll substitute dill. We're actually, right now, we're producing dill aquavit because you can only produce it during the harvest time. So over the next several weeks, we'll be making dill aquavit because we have 4 different harvests coming in over the next few weeks. And yes, we had 1,200 pounds of dill coming in our building right now.
And I think I saw online you have, now correct me if I'm wrong, I saw the number 11 different craft spirits that you manufacture. Is that still true, or is it more?
I couldn't tell you with certainty. So,
A good number.
yeah.
And what would you say is your best-selling spirit? Is it the aquavit, or is it the wheat whiskey, the Wisconsin wheat whiskey, or some other product?
Our bourbon is our
bourbon.
Bourbon is our number one seller. Bourbon is the number one seller probably in the country right now.
Mm-hmm. How many different cocktails do you offer at your locations? Now we're shifting to the bar and the restaurant that you have at your locations in New Richmond and in Stillwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. A few years ago, we built a bar, restaurant, and event center in New Richmond, and then at that same time, we also opened up a tasting room bar in Stillwater. But I'm probably the last person at my place that you want making you a cocktail. I don't bartend.
You don't know how to make a cocktail?
No.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. What is your distribution primarily? Is it customers coming into your store? Are people able to order online and you ship all over the country? And also, I'm curious, do you ship to foreign countries?
Those are good questions. We have been asked, we can ship to foreign countries. The one thing that keeps you from shipping to foreign countries is they generally have different size bottles. So you have to put the investment into, instead of a 750 milliliter bottle, you have to get a 700 milliliter bottle. So if you're willing,
because they're on the metric system rather than the imperial system in terms of how they measure fluids or liquids.
Well, they have full liters, but their most popular is a 700. Then they have 350 milliliters, or 500 milliliters also. But in the United States, it's 750 milliliters is the common bottle here. But as far as on direct to consumer, we can sell direct to consumer at our facility, and that's important. Before we couldn't do that. When they changed the laws and allowed us to do that, it was the difference between making money and not making money. But on over the internet sales, that's still not legal in distilling. So if you're a winery or a brewery, you can sell that way, but distilling, we still can't sell that way. That's kind of a big fight right now.
Why is that, Paul? Is it because of different states having different regulations on sales of alcoholic products?
It has something to do with that. Different states do have requirements. For example, a state, maybe if I was going to sell a bottle in Illinois, and I was going to sell it directly to consumer, then Illinois is going to be missing out maybe on some sales tax
revenue.
Yeah,
right.
So they want to figure that one out. Another thing is when they allowed wineries to do it, I think the distribution networks really didn't understand what it was going to do to them, and they do now. So they really don't want to see that rule change. They would rather have us sell it to them, and then they sell it to the consumer. Would
part of the issue also be concern about a young person who may be underage may be able to order a product like that?
You can buy wine and beer that way.
So that really wouldn't be a valid concern if you can buy beer and wine.
You're really supposed to put a sticker on it that says they're only supposed to be able to deliver it to somebody at the house that is 21 years old or older.
I want to circle back because I'm not sure we answered that. You do make sales abroad to foreign countries, Canada?
We have, but currently we are not selling abroad.
Okay.
Yeah, if anything, because most of the foreign places or countries, like we would get a call from somebody that was distributing in China or India. They wanted a shipping container of whiskey, and for us,
not cost effective, perhaps.
No, we didn't have enough. Our inventories were low enough. We only had the capacity really to sell regionally right here.
Interesting.
It takes time to build an inventory like that.
Yeah, and let's assume that wasn't a problem. Would another impediment to foreign sales possibly be excise taxes that foreign countries impose on imports?
Well, that's one of the advantages of selling overseas. is you don't have the excise tax. You don't have your, you don't
If
have
you
to
buy it there, you pay the tax,
You're
but
not
if you're shipping it in, you don't pay it?
Yeah, you'll probably have to pay some tax over there.
Yeah.
But for us, as the wholesaler who's selling it to the buyer overseas, we generally, if something leaves my building, I have to pay a state excise tax and a federal excise tax. But because it's not being sold in my state, I don't have to pay that state excise tax. And because it's not being sold in the United States, I don't pay the federal tax.
Right.
So that is the advantage of selling overseas.
So Paul, for those of us who are essentially not knowledgeable about the distillery process and developing new products, could you kind of walk us through what that process is? Where do you get ideas for new spirits or products, such as when you went to the aquavit? Why did you, what kind of analysis do you do before you make the decision on going to create a new product?
Well, initially, in the beginning, there weren't that many distilleries.
Yeah.
So generally, somebody would come up to me into our building and say, "We would like this made. Would you be interested in making it?" And then I would do some research on it and decide whether or not we could make it, and this is how much it's going to cost to make it. And then that customer would tell me yes or no. You won't. That's how a lot of our products.
Is it restaurant owners who come to you with these ideas, or is it customers who come to your restaurant?
Generally, there's somebody that has an idea of, hey, for example, we had a large egg outfit that they were seed corn outfit. So they realized that they could make money turning that seed corn into bourbon. And so they started selling us corn, and that's how we started making bourbon. Then I had somebody that was over from Denmark and Iceland, and he was looking for that dill aquavit. And he couldn't find it in the United States. So then they approached us to make it and start a brand in the United States. And that's how a lot of these interesting ideas come, is somebody else calling you up and asking you to try to do something. Or it just, you see something in an article that somebody's using Brazilian oak to finish
achieve
off
a certain flavor.
in their whiskey. And then you try it. And if it works, then you start selling it. But new things, unless it's very unique, it's hard to get it into the market right now, because when we started up, there were maybe 50 distilleries in the country. And then over like 15 years, 17 years, they were adding 100 plus distilleries in this country every single year.
Oh my
to the point where there were 2,750 distilleries in this country when there were only 50 when we started. And so now that you have a distribution network that has all these distilleries with all these products coming to them, and now they can't take it anymore. You saw say you have a bucket and you're filling it up with water. That was our industry. Over the years, all these distilleries came up. Now it's full, and the brands are full too. And now the distributors are starting to say, "Hey, we can't take on any more new products. They're going to be very choosy on what they accept." So that's really changing the industry right now, especially in the last 12 to 18 months. You're just not going to see new distilleries popping up anymore.
So basically what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, I interpret what you're saying, Paul, is the market is pretty well saturated.
It's saturated
with small,
I would say it's almost
distilleries.
matured.
Okay.
When we started, it was in infancy, and now it's grown up, because a lot of these small distilleries that started up over the years, they have been able to build these aged inventories of bourbon and rye whiskey, and now they have really nice stuff that they can sell that rivals the national brands that have been around for 100 years. However, the distribution network they're trying to figure it out.
Right.
And so if you're a new distillery, or if you come up with something new, you can't just go to a distributor and say, "Hey, I got something here," and they're going to distribute it. No, they're going to think about it. They're going to weigh it, and they might take it or they might not.
Well, and of course they want to take what they believe is going to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the ramifications of that is a lot of small distilleries that started up in the last 5 years, they're struggling, because they're struggling to get their products distributed. For example, Minnesota has lost 20% of its distilleries in the last 18 months.
That's significant turnover.
Even nationally. I'm part of the ACSA, They just sent out, we lost 45 distilleries members in the ACSA, which is the American Craft Spirits Association, in the last 6 months.
That's significant when we reflect back on what you said at the outset of today's interview about the kind of capital investment you need to make just to get going, just to get the business up and running.
Yeah, before it was the wild, wild west. I mean, you could make mistakes and they were forgivable because there was always a way to make money.
Yeah.
But the industry now is you have to watch what you're spending on. You have to be careful. You have to be thoughtful and consider your moves.
Right. Has a similar thing happened in the beer industry? We've heard all about microbrews. You know, you used to hear about places like Oregon, Portland, and Denver as being places where you heard originally about a lot of microbrews were in those cities. But now it seems every community practically has microbreweries.
The same
and
thing
there are
happened.
a lot here in Minnesota. Has the same thing happened there?
It has. And if anything, we, as a distiller, I was able to see 5 years ago what was going to happen to us right now. So 5 years ago, the distributors in brewing were culling the herd. They were, you know, no longer, they were cutting off small breweries that they felt like we don't want to sell that beer. It's too, the shelf space is too competitive. We have to reduce the number of products that are distributed so we don't have such a hard time finding shelf space.
Right. Say something, if you would, Paul, about where you get your grain that's used in the products that you manufacture and sell.
From one single farm, just south of our building. When we started up, we were buying grain from large mills, but it was inconsistent, and the
quality was inconsistent.
The quality, and then you might get other grains mixed in with it. So finding a small farm that had a consistent yields, consistent harvest, that was the key to us.
And you've been dealing with this particular farm how many years now?
About 17 years.
And they're able to meet all your demand, provide for all your needs?
When I looked into it in the early days, they were a 7-generation family farm. They've been farming for a long time. And the John Deere dealership near me, the mills near me, they all recommended this farm. It's not a huge farm. It's about 500 acres and only about 4 people that work it. But they had a reputation as having the best crops.
So in the process of making your products, process of making anything, there's always some waste. What do you do with your organic waste? Where does that go?
Well, what goes into our distilling, our production room, there's really no waste. What comes out of that room leaves that room in a tank as distilled spirits and water. There might be some water that goes down a drain. However, what's left in that still is pumped into another room, and there's solids in there and liquid. And they separate the solids from the liquid. The solids go into one tank or tote, and farms come every day and pick up that grain because we were at our max. We were up to 7,000 pounds of grain a day, and they would use it as cattle feed.
Okay, maybe I'm not using the right term, waste, but what I was trying to get to was this idea that in this process, the material, the grain that you're using, is also put to other uses.
Exactly.
That's what I was trying to get
to.
It
is. It's used. Even the liquid is reused. So the liquid would go to a silo, and then that's emptied every few days, and that goes into a tanker truck to a digester and turned into energy for actually the community of Turtle Lake, Wisconsin.
45th Parallel Distillery offers tours. I saw on your website that you offer, is it weekly tours that I saw on that? And you can make a reservation, or do you just show up to participate in a tour so that people can see the distilling process?
We have tours on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So one on Friday evening, 2 during Saturday, during the middle of the day, and then 1 on Sunday. They're not going to see as much production now as they would have seen maybe 6 months ago. Up until about 6 months ago, we were 7 days a week. So anybody who was coming in the building, we had 2 shifts. We were distilling from 7 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning. But now we're 5 days a week. So on the weekends, we're not really producing anymore.
Okay. And you also offer tastings, is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, so people have a chance to sample some of the product, learn more about the process you go through to make these things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you also operate, we mentioned earlier that you have restaurants in 2 locations, both New Richmond and Stillwater?
We don't have a restaurant in Stillwater. We have one in New Richmond.
New Richmond.
However, our bar and our tasting room in our production area in Stillwater is actually in the same building, shares a space with a restaurant in Stillwater called Proper. They also own Lolita's and Lolo's in Stillwater. So it's right on Main Street. If you were to walk down Main Street in Stillwater, you would see the sign for Proper.
Yeah.
They have the first half of the building. We have the second half of the building. Behind us is the lift bridge and
Hopefully,
the freight house.
Were you affected by the recent flooding in Stillwater, the St. Croix River?
Not really.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah. You also have an events calendar, or excuse me, an events center at your facility too, which I assume means can use it for wedding receptions, birthday parties, retirement parties.
All of the above.
All the above.
Yeah,
and how busy? How long out are people booking use of your event center there?
We're probably booking into 2020. Well, definitely into 2025 right now. But we try not to do too many weddings, so we book them out a little bit further away.
How many people can fit in that space, Paul? Do you know? Have an idea? Rough idea?
Technically, around 250. We can have a wedding for that. But if we take the mezzanine and the event space, and then we also have a large greed space.
Yeah.
For example, we have a wedding this weekend at around 300 plus.
Oh, yeah. So it's good size space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was interested to see, looking at your events calendar on your website, that you regularly have trivia nights.
Yes.
So you can come and have some spirits and engage in trivia night. Do you have prizes? Can people win prizes?
We do have
free
prizes.
Bottle of aquavit or something?
Something like that, yeah. Pizza, cash, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I wanted to mention earlier too. Tell us what's on the menu. It's primarily pizza that you offer at the restaurant?
We started, we have a wood-fired pizza oven. Our menu has an Italian bent to it, but we have other things. Soup. We have every Thursday night we have a Thursday night special. So it could be ribs, it could be steak, it could be something else. But that is usually chosen by one of our 2 chefs, and that is every Thursday night.
Right. And I think I saw on your website too that you also occasionally have live music, or do you have that available every night or just on weekends?
Every Wednesday we have live music, and then we have a couple concerts a year. So every quarter we'll have a concert.
Concerts outside the restaurant? You have
in the event space.
And then
outdoors. We have in September, at the end of September, we have what we call Barrels and Bluegrass. So we'll have 3 bluegrass bands that will play throughout the day.
That's great. Are they Minnesota musicians, or they come from all over the country?
All over. No, mostly our region.
So Western Wisconsin, Minnesota,
Exactly.
Twin Cities Metro.
Exactly.
Very interesting. So for our viewers who are interested in sampling your great products, give us the addresses real quickly, if you would. Where would they go to? They can go to your website. The address is?
For our event space, it's 1490 Madison Avenue, and that's in New Richmond, Wisconsin. And then we have, it's 728 Water Street, which is kind of a
main drag through Stillwater.
Well, it's kind of funny because when we went to that location, the owner gave us the address of that. It was 720 or 28 Water Street. And then when we filed the paperwork, the federal government actually approved it, because if you Google that address, it'll show us where we are. However, the city of Stillwater didn't recognize that address, because it's really kind of almost like an alley behind us.
Yeah.
But there's a parking lot.
Yeah.
It's right between us and the freight house. But they ended up accepting the address.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
You can Google it.
Yep. And our viewers can, of course, go to 45thparallel.org. or look it up on Google, 45th Parallel Distillery, and they'll pull up your site.
Yeah, 45th Parallel Distillery, 45th Parallel Spirits. I think even if you say 45th Parallel, they'll probably shut up.
Paul Werni, founder and owner of the 45th Parallel Distillery in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and Stillwater, Minnesota, and a sponsor of our program, Access to Democracy. Thank you for being our sponsor. Thank you for joining us today on our show.
Well, thank you.